Stanley Cup playoff action to break down for you here live on this Thursday on the early line on SportsGrid. It's Ben, it's Donnie. He can talk puck with the best of them, but none better than Jo Madden joining us live right here on this Thursday on the early line as well. Joe, thank you so much for taking the time bright and early on this Thursday to look at the action on the ice.
I'm excited. The ice has been absolutely incredibly hot. We saw all of the road teams win those 3 games last night. So we're in for some shakeups tonight, most definitely.
A triple header last night where the final game of the night out in Edmonton was the best. The Kings win in overtime as a pretty hefty road ice underdog against the Edmonton Oilers. Joe, as we were getting ready for the show today, the Oilers were a minus 190 favorite last night against LA. I was going to ask you the question, how commanding of a 2-0 lead is this for Edmonton for only Los Angeles to have different ideas in OT? What did last night's win for the Kings do for your outlook in this opening round series?
Well, you look at the Edmonton Oilers and they can't hold a lead, and the LA Kings are just fighting in each and every one of these games. The Oilers' main problem there is in goal. Skinner isn't the level of goalie that they need to be able to beat a team. Now, Connor McDavid's phenomenal. We saw him with the 5 assists in game 1, but last night they were able to limit him, and we saw Cam Talbot really stand up in net. I still do think this series goes deep, but Edmonton falling apart last night in that game, they needed to take that back to LA 2-0. Now going into LA 1-1 with Kopitar with that phenomenal overtime goal is not a good situation for Edmonton. It's going to be a struggle for them to take this series. Still ability to do so if they give more support to Skinner and net.
I'll tell you what's incredible, too. You take a look at Connor McDavid, how dominant he can be, and just talk to you about it in handicapping terms. Anytime point in a game, which a point a game is pretty incredible for an NHL player. This is the playoffs, which should be even harder to get points. He's a minus 650 price yesterday to get an anytime point. Obviously, that cashes in, but certainly the guy is absolute dominance. Talking about dominance last night, Joe, a team that's no stranger to making runs to the Stanley Cup final, that's the Golden Knights. A 3-1 victory on the road over the Stars. They take a commanding 2-0 series lead over the Stars. Incredible stuff out of the Golden Knights.
Yeah, and you look at the Dallas Stars here, they needed a home win. And not having a home win going back to the Fortress in Vegas, I think this is done. The Vegas Golden Knights really turn it back on for the playoffs. And we know the addition of Mark Stone coming back, how they're able to manipulate the cap is genius. And I don't know why other teams don't do this, because they obviously have. I don't think Dallas is going to be able one. This could be a sweep out of the Vegas Golden Knights. We know we're going to get the best out of the Dallas Stars, but they weren't able to get it done in a high situation felt in last night's game. So the Vegas Golden Knights are going to continue to dominate. Everyone across the playoff picture wants Dallas to take them out because Vegas just gets better and better every single playoff game they play. I'm going to be riding the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, I just don't have faith now in Jay. That defense gave him support last night, but Vegas finds a way each and every time.
Yeah, they certainly do. It's still a young franchise by relative terms in professional sports, but Vegas, after winning the Stanley Cup a season ago, shows us that pedigree now in this Stanley Cup postseason in 2024. Joe, they're a co-favorite alongside the Edmonton Oilers at plus 320 to now win the Western Conference. Last night, the first game of 3 that we saw was in Toronto between the Bruins and the Maple Leafs. We changed venue. It was even at 1 game apiece before we headed to Toronto last night. But the Boston Bruins take a 2-1 series lead. Tied at 1-1 entering the third and final stanza. The Bees score 3 goals in that third period to pull away for the 4-2 victory. It was a dead even pick'em last night. Minus 110 both sides on the money line. How did Boston pick up the victory up in Toronto?
We just saw so much out of Swayman in net. This Boston Bruins team had a phenomenal game. Marchand came out so phenomenally strong, and they were able to limit the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, Toronto does have that issue in net with Samsonov. This is a team that needs to be able to score those goals in a higher scoring game to be able to get the win. But I do think that they could win the next game here and make a series of this because of what Boston is doing with their goaltending. I really do think they should leave Swayman Swayman in net and not go back to Omar, but they've been alternating goaltending each and every one of these matchups. So we will see Omar, and Toronto, we know, is able to score on him. So this series is going to go deep. I think Toronto takes the next one, but Swayman, Hawk goaltender, was able to get them that win last night. He had a phenomenal game. And offensively, the Bruins stepped up. Now, these teams are playing so chippy out there. Those penalties are going to come into play. Both of these teams need to stay out of the box.
And by the way, take a look at that series price now. It does flip over to Boston at a minus 275 price, but also the struggles here of the Maple Leafs in the playoffs. You look at guys like Tavares, Marner, and Matthews. Where does that wind up if they get knocked out once again in the first round? But that is one Canadian team to take a look at to win the Stanley Cup at the FanDuel Sportsbook, Joe. They're listed at 28-1. Other teams, the Oilers, 7-1. The Winnipeg Jets, 20-1. Vancouver at 20-1. Is it the Edmonton Oilers the best chance here to lift Lord Stanley Cup for Canada?
I really can't get behind Edmonton as the best Canadian team to be able to do so. I really do think you have to circle the Winnipeg Jets, and you're getting so much more value with them. This team is built to win in the playoffs. They have a great goaltending duo here with Connor Hellebuck and Boussoit. Their defense is able to lock down and win lower scoring games. Now they have to start playing their game versus the Colorado Avalanche. This series tied 1-1 apiece going back to Colorado. They cannot sustain high scoring games here and expect to be able to win this series. But I do think this team, offensively, defensively, and in net, have the value here to be able to take the Stanley Cup. You look at Edmonton, and again, it comes down to Skinner in net. I just can't have the faith in them. They do crumble in those situations. We look at Vancouver. Demko is out for the rest of the series versus the Predators. With Casey DeSmith, I don't have the faith there. So the Winnipeg Jets for me in this one, you guys.
Yeah, when you look at Edmonton, 7-1 right now, fourth best price still to win the Stanley Cup, but the only Canadian team in the seven best prices at 11-1 or shorter to win the Stanley Cup as of this moment in the opening round. Joe, a doubleheader on this Thursday night on the ice, a change of venue where the series favorites at home in their first two games of the set held serve on home ice. Now we change from Sunrise to Tampa in the Sunshine State showdown between Florida and Tampa Bay. And, of course, we go to New York where the Isles will host the Carolina Hurricanes. Again, both road teams entering game number 3 with a 2-0 series lead. Must win for the Bolts, must win for the Isles. Of those two teams, who has a better shot of winning their first game of the series tonight?
It's definitely the Tampa Bay Lightning. You look at them here and they have to contain this game with the Florida Panthers and start playing their own game. They've allowed the Panthers to control that puck out there, control the movement. But I do think the Lightning, this team is so phenomenally strong with Andrei Vasilevskiy and how tight these games have been, have every opportunity of getting the win tonight, especially with Sam Bennett out for the Florida Panthers. He is going to be out at least this game. It looks like a couple. And I think the Lightning will be able to get this series under control here. This is a do or die situation. And then when we look at the New York Islanders, I tell you, this team is in trouble here. Sorokin, though, will be getting the start in net and not Varlamov. Now, he's been extremely strong versus the Carolina Hurricanes in his playoff career. So I do think this one stays under that total of 5.5. But you look at the Canes, this team is so phenomenally strong on both sides of the puck. And Frederick Anderson has just been so solid in net. It's going to be a hard one for the Islanders. I have most faith in the Lightning tonight to be able to get a win at home.
Yeah, New York, a home underdog at plus 140 inside UBS Arena out on the island. The Lightning, a very slight home favorite against the Panthers, minus 115, the money line number, minus 104 on the other side for Florida. Jo Madden, thank you so much. What a great breakdown it was all across the ice, looking back on last night and previewing this Thursday as well.